Hey, welcome back to Mornings with the Mayor. I'm your host, Mayor Robert C. We're taking another inside look into what's happening in the city of Farmers Branch. And we're kind of in a wait and see mode right now with the national elections in the spotlight, with governors working to fully open their states and assessing the true impact the COVID has had on our businesses coming out of this whole thing. And as we all know, disruption and change are part of the game of life and in business. And we need to be innovative if we're going to stay ahead of the curve and continuously adapt to a never-ending kind of evolution of how business just runs and operates. And sports, as you know, went through some major disruptions this year, from playing in bubbles to playing without fans to the uncertainty of even playing. One of our local companies, Big Game Sports, is a prime example of uncertainty, pivoting, innovation, and planning for the future. And joining us today is Chris Calandro from Big Game Sports, and we also have Erin from the Metrocrest Chamber, to talk about small businesses and the opportunities in front of us and how we all have kind of worked to navigate these difficulties to come out on top. And so just to start, Chris, Erin, just, how you doing? How's life?
Doing well. Good to talk to you guys again. Doing great today. Hope you are the same.
You both.
Yeah, appreciate you guys kind of jumping in, but I mean, let's just get right into it. Chris, you make footballs. You make footballs for a lot of schools, a lot of teams, and I kind of want to know the backstory of how you got into that.
Yeah, we do make footballs. That's kind of all we do. But I kind of started 26 years ago. I'm a little bit of a graphic type of person, so I started by painting game balls for players, just like award footballs that they would coach would give to a player for a great game or maybe a milestone, a record, or some big play. And I did that for some years, actually, just by taking game balls and painting them with players' names. That's where it started. And then I kind of got a following. Like, we had people that we were getting more business than I could really keep up with. It got to be where it was kind of a drag. I hated the monotony of, everyone was a work of art. It was just complicated and difficult, and they were coming in faster than I could keep up. So I ended up hiring a woman that knew how to sew, and she was great. And we bought a sewing machine. We started to stitch footballs that were printed instead of being hand painted. So it was more of a graphic design than it was fine art. I'm not calling my work fine art by any stretch, but so we started and able to scale it. We figured out we had to find a better way to do it. And I ended up getting a patent for the way that we made them then and still make them now. And so it became more of a scalable business that we could go get more customers and get some more help and turn it into a business. That's kind of how I got started.
Well, it's fascinating how you evolved from just painting footballs to now making tons of them. But I've heard you in the past tell the story about how the timing of getting into this and starting Big Game Sports was at the time that a lot of the manufacturing companies were getting out of the game, and you were able to scoop up a lot of their equipment, pennies on the dollars. And so how did that kind of come about, and how did you know that this was something that you wanted to do and take advantage of that opportunity that was in front of you, in spite of even some of the larger competitors leaving the space?
Yeah. Well, I have a lot of things that I do horribly and that I'm not very good at. But one thing I kind of a knack for is figuring things out. And just through trial and error, really, we started to learn what was the wrong sewing machine you need versus the right one, and what we didn't want to do and what we wanted to do. It all sort of became clear to us. And you guys are too young to really remember, but in the late 80s and early 90s, offshoring product got to be really in vogue. Countless companies started, American manufacturing companies, large American manufacturing companies started deciding, hey, we're gonna instead of making stuff in the USA, we can send it offshore and we can save $7 a unit. And it's arguably the same, and we can increase our profits. That's about the time I got into it. And it was maybe divine timing, but it really wasn't. I wasn't smart enough to know that was the right time, but we got into it right when all the big USA sporting goods brands were sending footballs offshore. So I was able to buy equipment that they were getting rid of, and I got it for darn near nothing. And we still have extra machines that we bought back then that we use for parts, or we take some of them online every now and then when we need to increase our capacity. So at the time, it was, looking back, I have the luxury of saying like it was the perfect time to get into it because everyone was getting out. And again, we bought the equipment, like you said. And also there was this hole in the business where, I remember very early when we were just getting started, we got a call from Oklahoma, and they said, hey, Coach Stoops is doing a golf tournament in 10 days. He needs 200 footballs, and here's what he wants. And that business would have been gobbled up by a company that, if they were still in that business, they would have taken that order. But when they went offshore, it left not only these mothballed machines, but it also left this hole in the business of opportunity we were the only ones poised to take a small order. And overseas, they don't do 200 custom units in 10 days. That's just not their game. So it really just kind of worked out perfect for us. Not to say there wasn't difficulty and challenges, but we're real fortunate the way that turned out for us.
Yeah, no, that's very fortunate. And Erin, love your opinion, but just hearing that story of offshoring kind of in vogue, and I know there's been a big push for companies to kind of come back to the States and produce here locally, a lot like what Big Game is doing. Given the number of chambers you've worked for and the connections you've made nationwide, like what's happening right now in terms of are we seeing more people coming back, or what's kind of been the focus here lately?
I think that Chris is still the expert in this arena because this is Chris's bread and butter, but Chris and I will tag team this one. So first of all, good morning, Chris, and good morning, Rob. Thanks so much for having me. I cannot think of two better people to spend my morning with, but I love working with both of you. But as you said, Rob, we're seeing companies want to do business locally. And I think what Chris is talking about, making footballs is the American dream. I'm super fortunate right now that I'm sitting at Southwest Airlines headquarters, and I just so happen, Chris is about to turn his camera off. I can feel it in my bones. But I just so happen to have this super awesome Big Game football that after Chris won Hometown Hero at our awards banquet, he talked to Southwest Airlines and he just made this as a prototype. Like, this does not look like anyone's prototype. This looks like a game-winning ball. It's also an airplane, so I want to make sure you can see that. So Chris is just such an innovator in the space, and that's what businesses want, but they want that in their hometown. And so that's what we're really seeing, is that, like Chris said, Rob and I probably are a little bit too young to remember some of that, but what we're seeing now is that people want to see where their goods are made, and they want to be able to walk the floor. And you can do that at Big Game. And you can see from the start, you can see the leather, you can see it being cut, and then you can see it through to completion. And someone is doing that with their hands. And that's a gift, and that's a skill. And that's not just a machine. There are machines through that process, but there are still humans behind that process. And so I think what we're seeing is that the next generation still is building back an appreciation for the craft of manufacturing. And so as we watch businesses come back to America, the gift in that is that business communities are saying, come back to us. We want you here in our hometowns. And so that's why Farmers Branch loves having Big Game here with us locally, because the American dream is building football in your backyard. And so, Chris, hey man, we love having you here.
Yeah, well, it's you guys treat us so well. We're glad to be here, and want to be here for a long time. But yeah, I think you said it well. I was always the one, the kid who would take something at home and take it apart just to see how it worked. That was me as a child. My mother died early, probably because of that. I think it's in my DNA to, I always want to figure out how to do something better and make it. And there's certainly some disadvantages to having an American manufacturing company, but there's so many good things about it. Just, you sort of control your own, destiny of how fast you can do something, how custom you can do something. We certainly have our intellectual properties and patents and innovations under wraps. We don't have to share that with anyone. So there's no other factory across the world that we're teaching how to do something. We keep it all ourselves. So I think that's important for American businesses, that intellectual property item, because if you teach someone else how to do something, you sort of lose control over those assets that belong to you. So I think that's an often forgotten thing about making things in America.
Yeah, and you kind of see your protection of that firsthand when we take tours of your facility, and as our phones are out looking at some stuff and we get to some of your proprietary techniques, you take our phones and smash them on the ground, just so that we can capture that sweet footage of how you're making these footballs, especially ones that, in my opinion, are better than what's being created overseas. And, how do you compete outside of just that competitive advantage you just talked about with the Chinese companies that are also in this space to make sure that, the American game of football is being represented by an American company and, gathering more market share across the country as you try to introduce your product to other schools and teams?
Yeah, I would say, first of all, to all the consumers out there is, I like it when somebody cares about that. That's certainly something I think about. I mean, it's hard to buy American-made things, and especially shoes and some other things. It's kind of hard to do, but it's great that people care about it. But basically, I just feel like the American football is an American icon, sort of like, I don't know, a t-shirt or hot dog or apple pie or whatever. But to me, it just seems like all is well with the world when, cheese is made in Wisconsin or surfboards in California. I just think all is well with the world when American football is made in Texas, the heart of football, USA, heart of the football world. It just feels right. And I like it when I talk to people who care about that. That's important. It's really what we're all about. And it's not just the product that we build, it's in the service that we give. We've talked about it when you've been here, is that we have a couple of very simple business philosophies that I talk about all the time with the team. And it's just two things. It's build a really good product, and it's really take care of people, to treat people right. I think if we do those two things, then we really have nothing to worry about, that the market will respond and people will send business our way. And we were talking about the other day in the office, it's opportunities just sort of present themselves to us, which is pretty exciting and affirming, because if we do those two things, then people come to us and say, hey, let's talk. We have a need, and how can you help us?
Yeah, and I love that you brought up, how are you providing people opportunities and protecting your employees? And when COVID kind of hit, I'm sure it was a huge disruption for you, and there was definitely some concern. I know we talked about that the other day, but what were kind of your thoughts when that first hit? How did you pivot, and how did you get through to the point to where you finally got some confirmation from not only in the high schools but the colleges that you're producing balls for, that hey, these seasons are going to go forward, and hey, we need your services again, and that you were ready to ramp up and produce footballs and get them to the teams in need?
Yeah, well, as far as COVID and the pivot we had to do, so, and first of all, you were very instrumental. That you and Erin both were played a big part in our ability to get through this. No one saw this coming, and we had a tough time, just like everyone else, understanding how this would end for us, or how we would adapt. But, you know, we started making masks, obviously, and we adjusted. Again, it goes kind of back to that USA thing, is that we can, we don't need a whole lot as far as approvals, or we could just, we're a small, nimble company, we can just adapt. And so we did. You know, we just, we had the people, we had the machines. We even had some fabric in hand to start making masks. And it was a natural thing for me, is, you know, just like everyone else, I was reading the newspapers and watching television talking about the need for masks. And we had all the parts in place to do it. Just partly for business, but largely for the desire to help other people. So we started making masks right about spring break. I remember a conversation with you guys that just one day we flipped the switch and we started learning how to build them. We didn't know anything about masks. I watched a lot of YouTube videos and read a bunch from the CDC. And like I said, I kind of have this knack of figuring things out. I just understand how things tick. So it just took some time to figure it out. But we just adapted and did the right thing. And we had everything we needed. And I believe we helped a lot of people to stay safe, especially the first responders who didn't really have the luxury of staying home and doing some of the things that others of us did that to keep ourselves safe. There were so many people that were on the front lines, and Erin, you were instrumental that just said, hey, I know people that need them, just keep building them. And so we talked 10 times a day, probably, talking about, hey, the Carrollton Fire Department needs some, or the Farmers Branch Police Department and Addison folks. We just sort of rallied together to get it done. It was just, it was very stressful and difficult. Looking back, it was one of those times that I'm really proud to be a part of, and glad we were able to help some people along the way.
Yeah, no, that's impressive, and it's just always great to see, you know, innovators continuing to find creative ways to adapt to challenging situations. And Erin, I know you work directly with Chris, you know, day in, day out, as Chris just said, to, you know, find companies, you know, not only in Farmers Branch, but outside the region as well, that, you know, Chris could produce for, to, you know, find opportunity for him. And, you know, what was that like? And, you know, not only the benefit to Big Game, you know, how did that work, you know, going forward for you to adapt as well?
Sure, absolutely. Well, first and foremost, you know, I felt for a good period of time that I worked for Chris, and it was a lovely experience. I felt like I was on Team Big Game. It's the closest I was going to get to like playing football. I was like, let's do this. Where's my jersey? And I never got a jersey, so I'm still waiting. But no, you know, I remember when Chris called me that Sunday night and he was like, okay, we're going to do and I was like, let's do it. We're in this together, you know, and that's the thing. I think that for so many of our member businesses, and for our first responders, and for our school districts, and for our nonprofits, like Chris said, they didn't get a luxury of staying home. But so many of our small businesses didn't stop working either. And so Chris's team powered through it. And Chris would call me and say, like, okay, I'm on mask version 4 for the day. And so this is what he's laughing, because he's, you know, every iteration would change and it would get better. And he was driving his team nuts. But the betterment got our community safer each time. And so for the first like 1,000 million, he was just dishing them out. Like I feel like every meeting Chris and I had, it was in the parking lot. I wore a baseball cap and gym shorts. And when I saw Chris the other day, he was like, you look really nice. You took a shower. And I was like, yes, I did. That's true. That's true. And we just, you know, locked figurative arms and said, this is what our business community needs. And what that meant for so many businesses is it's one more thing they didn't have to think about, which meant they put their business first. They put their people first. And Chris also could keep his people employed. And that's something so many people didn't think about during this time, is Chris never had to furlough anyone. He didn't lay anyone off. and it changed the game in which his people played momentarily. It also rescripted the way he worked his line in his facility. And that's cool too. You know, so many people retooled during this time. It also gave Chris some different strategic relationships. And I think that's what we need to do. Chris normally wouldn't have been working with these companies, and that's okay. That wasn't his market. That wasn't his arena. And so now as we go back into the next normal, should they have a need for that relationship, it exists. Should there be a need for a partnership, it's there. And that's really our role as a Chamber of Commerce, is to, you know, really do forced collision intentional relationships, and no one forced collision of relationships like COVID. But I will tell you, there is something in an innovator's mind that doesn't stop ticking. And I would like to be on Chris's family plan for his cell phone. So for Christmas, that is what I'm asking for this year. But, you know, it is a pleasure to serve our business community. And he's saying no, so that's odd. But honestly, it was really, I think that, you know, everyone's going to continue to look back on these times and think this is what I learned. And these are these little things that I get to learn in my job, because no day looks the same. And I learned skills from Chris as an inventor and a founder of a company, because I work for him as a member business. And that was an awesome opportunity for us as a chamber to learn from. Big game.
Yeah, no, that's go ahead.
Sorry, Rob. You hit it perfect, because one thing that was a surprise for me was when we started making masks, we didn't have all the raw materials to do it. We had most of them, but it was fun for me to call fabric stores and Farmers Branch and say, hey, we need a certain fabric. And they didn't have sewing machines, but yet they had fabric. I even called you know, the wire that goes over the nose part. I was like, well, we have some wire here, and I just thought, you know, what we need is like the wire that florists use, like to wrap around, what they use for, I've never done any flower arranging, but I think there's wire that they use. So I called a florist in Farmers Branch and I said, hey, I need some wire. I need some wire on the quick. And they're like, well, we're closed because of this whole mess, but I will leave some out for you. So I went and picked some up from a local florist, and we needed that wire to do what we were going to do. It was just cool to see all the surprise relationships, and those people didn't know me from anybody, but they just were like, hey, you need wire? We got wire. So it was just cool to see that. It was great. It reminded me a lot about 9/11, when it just really bonded everyone together. It was just very heartwarming to see people just want to help. And we were no different. Our people were no different. I didn't have a single person on the staff was like, wait a second, I got to learn how to make masks. We would make, like, this is just messed up. I really don't. I mean, nobody complained. Everybody said, yes, let's get behind this. Let's go. It was just, I don't know, it was just a great, it was terrible. There were some long nights back in those days, but looking back, it was something I'll just never forget. And it was great in many ways.
Yeah, and I love the way that you were able to pivot and collaborate with so many local companies, because the fact that we were able to find a way, and you were able to find a way to make yourself essential so you could stay open, so you could keep people employed. You found a new opportunity, but the fact that you used local companies and companies within this region, companies within Farmers Branch to be local, to stay local, and to shop local, to produce local was just, you know, it was exciting to see, and just thrilling to see that so many other businesses like yours were looking for those same opportunities. And I'm grateful that, you know, we had a community that was willing to let some of those things happen, because, you know, firms like yours, you needed to stay open, and how are we going to do that? And for several other businesses, but, you know, in order to pivot back to your core business, which is kind of what you're back to right now, you know, what opportunities did you see, knowing that there was so much uncertainty in high school football and college football, that you and your firm were poised and ready to work immediately and be on the fly and deliver goods quickly, assuming that, hey, games were going to be back on, practices were going to be starting up again, that maybe some of these other companies overseas couldn't adapt to or respond to as quickly as you all?
Well, first of all, I'll say it's evolving. I mean, it's still a process that we're going through. We talk about it all, you know, all the time, every day, really. You know, I mean, there just was opportunity from it. We for one, the first thing comes to mind is we are very strong in the institutional business. Like that means selling to football teams. Where we're pretty weak is selling to retailers like Dick's Academy, Walmart, Target, places like that. We historically have not been very strong there. Divinely been, fortunately for us, that business has kind of got crushed with this whole thing with the shutdowns, and they weren't really able to sell through brick and mortar outlets, which is somewhere we were weak. So we were a little protected there. But man, if you did not believe before March that e-com was a thing or an emerging category, which I think everyone believed, if you didn't believe it then, you certainly believe it now, because the online sales is an opportunity, and we're adapting and going into new channels that we haven't been, and it's been really good, and it just was different. I mean, it was just a place we had to go pretty quickly that we weren't, and it's been really good. So you just I think every business owner out there knows this, but you have to keep your eyes peeled. I mean, you have to listen. You have to. Generally speaking, I get a credit or attention for innovating cool products or business pivots, but really it's just a simple thing. You just have to listen. You just have to pay attention to what's out there and adapt where you can as fast as you can. That this is one example of many that there have been over the years that it just you just have to pay attention. Every cool innovation I've ever built into a football came from a conversation with a quarterback or a player that said, this is cool, but what I really like is blank. And the market, and if you're paying attention, they tell you exactly what to do. You just have to listen.
I mean, is that kind of, and I'm going to joke because, I grew up a huge Patriots fan and love Tom Brady, but have you had conversation with him about how to make the football a little bit lighter? Just a little bit softer?
We've had, several conversations, mostly with NCAA, about how we can't let that happen.
Just kind of joking. But, Erin, I would say that, Chris might have just pitched your next state of series in terms of, what is the state of e-commerce? How is the landscape shifting? Because so many businesses now have to pay attention to that piece of the puzzle in order to survive and compete on a bigger level. And, kind of as a small business owner myself, where my focus is building industrial buildings, I was fortunate enough that, people were still needing space. We still had to build. And the great thing is all the construction companies, architects, engineers that we work with were able to keep working as well during this difficult time. But, have you heard from other companies that are looking at a different shift, Erin, and, maybe looking for more space? Because I know, Chris is looking for some different space too, something we're still working on, but, trying to figure this all out as we move forward.
Absolutely. So first of all, that's so great because we love doing our State of Series, and I know Chris loves public speaking. So that is just a perfect marriage of opportunity here. So thanks, Chris. It's always great when you pitch yourself as a speaker. I know this is a great opportunity for us. But yeah, Rob, I think you're absolutely correct. What we saw is a couple of opportunities. I think people either looked at it like, what am I even doing with my space? Am I utilizing it correctly? Have I even really conceptualized what is next for me? And in that same vein, why have I not paid attention to e-commerce in the way that I am? I am currently sitting at Southwest Airlines, like I said, and Linda Rutherford is our past chairman several years back. And I remember the year she was chair, she said e-commerce so many times that I started taking a tally during the meetings where I would be like, please stop saying e-com. But this was, 2014. And it was just, it wasn't really on our radar as a chamber. Why are we talking about this? And I think it's true. So many small businesses, they had to pick and choose what they were doing during this time. And so they would have to pick and choose what to focus on in what arena, how, where, when, and now. And so for so many businesses, they're deciding what is next. And the opportunities are, how do we use our space? Is our space being capitalized on correctly? How do we use our space in a way that makes sense? And space is still the same as e-commerce. E-commerce is still a space in today's marketplace. So I think that for a lot of businesses, we'll see them change the game in which they use their space. There's a couple of companies that are doing a concept of, work from home forever, work from home in a new concept, but they're keeping their space because they know that people still need togetherness, because disconnection is more real than it ever has been. So we're going to see people revitalize space, and that's going to bring people together in a new way, because as humans, we still crave social togetherness. I know that was one of my biggest things. I didn't realize how much I traded time as a commodity during this. And I realized, my job is based on gathering people, but I also thrived off of that energy. And so I need to capture how I base myself in a space. So do businesses. So we'll see people either keep growing or change the game in which they use space for their businesses. But Chris is growing, and that's good. He's going to continue to grow in Farmers Branch. See what I did there, Chris? That's fantastic. But no, it's a good opportunity for small businesses to say, if I wasn't really playing in the e-commerce space, there's never a better time. And we've seen so many business owners be able to do a pause and reset some of the skills they're not the best in and really invest in themselves. And that makes them a stronger business owner. It's not a sign of weakness to say, hey, I wasn't good at this, and now's the time to reinvest in myself. It's not bad.
Yeah. And, you brought it up a few times about disruption. And Chris, I'd love to hear from you. Like, what do you feel is the biggest disruption in your industry right now? And how are you going to address that? And where do you see yourself going from here? And, if that concept itself is kind of proprietary, we can shift away from it. But just wondering, high level, what does it look like for y'all?
It's funny that I'm not sure I really told anyone this, or definitely not many people this, but 10 years ago, I think or maybe 20 years ago, my fear was that sports as we know it could easily be disrupted by terrorism. I mean, you remember after 9/11, I thought, man, all it takes is somebody to do something in a stadium, and then that's going to be no fans, and that could kill our business. It is just strange that I believe fans will be back, but it's strange we got there in a totally different way, unfortunately. So that's the big thing for us, is that we are big with college football and high school football too, but they sort of, the revenue models depend upon fans at games. So that adjustment is difficult. We're right in the middle of it, of university budgets being cut because they're not getting they're probably not getting money from rich donors because there's less rich guys than there used to be, and they're not giving money to schools as they did. So that's just something that's, I think everybody in the sports business is trying to figure out what life looks like in a different way. I'm delighted to see football going more than it was. Everybody at the FBS level of football is playing this fall at some level, or will be. That's very good for us. And I have really no concerns, or don't lose any sleep over the game of football, just because I think that it's still America's favorite sport, and it's still growing. It's just going to be different. And so we're, working every day. We have meetings to talk about what we're, how we're going to do. We have several plans in place, and new products that we're going to release soon, maybe even later this month. So we're just adjusting, and this I'm getting older, and I just know that this is not the last disruption I'm gonna have to deal with. It's certainly not the first. It's been awful and tragic for a lot of people in a lot of ways, and but there'll always be something like that, and it's maybe not like we think it will go down, but they're just trying to adjust and keep our eyes peeled and keep helping our staff. We didn't really talk about that, but I consider it a huge obligation to provide for the people that I work with and give them a way to support their families. And that's my objective, is to run the company in a way that keeps us moving forward, to give opportunities for our people to provide for their families.
Yeah, and that's great. You're kind of seeing that from the professional owners too, which, I know that you don't really look at it as generosity, but the fact that they are still playing games in a way and not in their stadiums and not with fans, because people don't realize it, but I believe Jerry Jones, in terms of what he makes on each game, is almost as much as all the revenue we as a city generate. And that's one weekend, 8 weekends a year. And it's incredible to think about that, and that piece of the economy that was taken away. But the fact that they're finding ways to play and, give you opportunities, but give fans opportunities. I know that fans are going to want to come back, because, I know I miss Mavs games, I miss Rangers games, I miss NFL, I miss NCAA. And so, being able to, see those again, I think is high on people's list. But, I kind of want to ask one follow-up question, because you touched on it, and it's been interesting to me, but I didn't realize how much of a impact the donors made in terms of the equipment that's given for football teams, basketball teams, and other things. And it's just not necessarily coming out of the school's allocated budget. And, you being attuned to that, I just thought it was fascinating to touch on what piece of that plays, and donors not giving right now does impact, school and athletics budgets.
Yeah, it actually reminds me a lot of 2008, economic dip or recession that we had then. Universities, athletic departments, they are heavily relied upon donor funding, and that could be equipment or cash or whatever. I don't really know, but I think one of the ripple effects of the economic condition of today is that cash is tight. I mean, people are even people with cash are sort of wanting to wait and see, or just maybe I don't give that big gift to a charity, or it's definitely an adjustment. And I know that there's people that sell sponsorships. That's part of their business, and I just think a lot sponsorship dollars are hard to get right now. Companies and people are kind of wanting to take the wait and see attitude. We sort of that trickled down to us too with colleges. So 2008 was an adjustment for us, but it was a year and a half later, it was business as usual. So with age, you sort of have the the wisdom of seeing things happen, or having seen things happen before. So I'm not terribly concerned about it, but we'll adjust. And I look forward to having a conversation with you a year from now, talking about how great things are. And I'm just generally optimistic about the future.
Yeah, I like being optimistic as well. It's always sometimes it's the harder side of the coin to be on, but it's definitely, in my opinion, the better side to be on, just because, anytime you look at a challenge or difficulty, there is opportunity in there. And you just have to find it. I'm glad that you did. But any parting words, Chris or Erin, that you would kind of leave with some of our small businesses right now, as they're looking to, find solutions the way that y'all did to kind of navigate through this, before we get into what I like to call some of our rapid fire questions that you weren't prepared for this, Chris, and you're not going to be.
Erin, why don't you take it away?
No, go ahead, Chris. I'll follow you. I'll follow your lead.
Parting words. So, just the same thing I've said before is that I just, if there's anyone paying attention to this that is either wanting to start a business or in a business, there always is opportunity. So, just again, if you're paying attention to what's going on, and I'm really in tune to needs, like I think necessity is the mother of invention, I think is the saying. There is plenty of opportunity to go and start a business, to grow your business if you have one, and to change. And again, I've been through some of this before, this economic conditions, and it will be fine. We just keep plugging forward and keep pursuing, don't quit, and just keep pursuing your dream and your passion. And time is a healer, and will kind of correct the situation that we're in. So that's anything you want to say to add to that, Erin?
Don't want to follow that. But no, it's just such a great opportunity to get to work for people like Chris as a member. And, when Rob and I were there recently, and there's little things that you can pick up from business owners all the time right now. And disruption can either own you or you can own it. And I think Chris has completely owned this process and built for the better. And little things like he knows everyone's name on the floor. That seems so obvious right now, but there's been fragmentation in our society with businesses working from home, and people realized I don't even know anything about my employees. So the little things you can do as we come back together as a society is really get to know your people, dig in on their lives, and decide what you want to let back in for the better. And so I'm just proud to get to work with people like Chris at 10 times a day, or 1 time a week, whatever he lets me, when he doesn't have a voicemail. But working for a business community in Farmers Branch is an absolute pleasure, and it is a gift. And so, Rob, thanks for this extra time, and I am completely unready for the rapid fire questions.
Yeah, and one other piece that I'll add, Chris, because you brought it up, and it's disheartening to me to know that my alma mater is not buying my footballs from me. So I will be writing a strongly worded letter and calling upon all of my friends, and even Linda Rutherford over at Southwest, to say, hey, we need to right this wrong. And then if it's also a donor issue, maybe that's what moves the mark sometimes. So, with rapid fire, Chris, I do want to know what's your favorite commemorative football that you've ever designed or created?
I don't have to think about that one. When I was a little boy in South Louisiana, my dad took me and my brother to an LSU game. We were hosting USC. It was a big game, and we were there. And long story, but basically we had 3 of us to get in the game with 2 tickets. And someone had given us tickets, and my father would try to buy another ticket. We were pretty broke, so we couldn't really afford it. But the ticket taker let my father in with his 2 boys. And so we went to the game. It was electric. Tiger Stadium was rocking, and it was just a great game. So probably my favorite college football game I've ever been to. But before my father passed away, I painted him a game ball commemorating that game and that time with me and my brother. And it was just special. And I miss my dad, love my dad, and just was cool that I got to do that for him before he passed away.
Incredible. And I know, Tom Bryce and our director, huge fan of LSU, and has fond memories there too. So it's great to see that connection, especially just how close it is to Texas. But Erin, I would ask you, how many dogs are the right amount of dogs for one person to own?
Infinity and beyond. There's no set number. We have 3 at home. One is a native Farmers Branchian. I found her on the streets. But 3 is the limit in Carrollton where I live. But there's no set number. Whatever makes your heart whole, Robert. So we'll work on getting you one as a local politician. I think 1 is the right number for you.
Yeah, every politician needs one. But we're still working on that. And I mean, Chris, any perks from preparing the footballs for so many teams? It's been to a college national championship or a Super Bowl or anything?
Yeah, I do go to the Natty every year. I go to Army Navy on the field for those. That's I mean, I've been to Super Bowls and everything, but the Army Navy game is my favorite. So if you've never been, please add that to your bucket list and go. That's just, I'm in the military, and you just got choppers and jets flying over, and guys on the sideline last year. They had some dudes that were just like totally in like black fatigues, and they had like berets on and stuff. I was like, that is cool. So cannons going off, everything. Go to Army Navy if you haven't been. It's like the best game ever. And you know, the perk really is just that not this year, of course, because of the bubble on the field, but getting to be on the field for college football games. Usually in a normal year, I'm going every weekend to a different game across the country. This year I've been to 0. So I look forward to getting back to that. And it's fun to watch a game from the sideline, because you just really can't appreciate the speed and how fast the game moves, and the hitting and the chatter. Just, I don't know, it's just I love the pageantry of a football game, the bands, the smells of grilling and choppers flying overhead. Just, I don't know, it's just a great experience, college football in particular. I just love it. I miss it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to definitely check that out. You learn something new every day. Clearly, I'm not in the know that the national championship's called the Natty, so I'm gonna add that to my repertoire of words that I use. But when you talk about this, say that again.
I said you're the young guy. You're supposed to know that. I
know, it's disappointing. Although I feel older than you some days. So it is what it is. But you know, when you talk about the speed of the game, you know, I would ask Erin a similar question about speed. Do you believe that the speed limit is actually 5 miles an hour lower than the posted limit?
I believe the speed limit is 5 miles per hour. He is referring to the speed at which I drive at all times, which is easily 5 miles an hour. I've never had a speeding ticket. I've actually never been pulled over. I probably just ruined it for myself, but I am just a super cautious driver. I just like to cruise. Like, I love to listen to music and enjoy the very slow breeze in my hair. The Farmers Branch is a speed limit of 35 miles an hour. Like, those are my people. That's my type of speed limit. David Hale will appreciate that. Chief Hale will appreciate that.
I have a question on that.
Okay.
When you're driving down the road and you see a Farmers Branch policeman parked on the side of the road, does your heart drop a little bit, or do you just know that, hey, I'm always going 500?
No, I kind of wave, because I'm like, hey, I'm not speeding. And I don't know, you know, I grew up in Tucson, Arizona, and I never really drove on a freeway or a highway or anything until I moved here. And so moving here 10 years ago, I moved to Texas, and the amount of free, the tollway when I came to the chamber 7 years ago, I was just like, oh no. But now I'm a little bit better, but not many people are like, you drive to the meeting. They're like, no, it's going to take us 3 hours to get there. It's 2 miles down the road. So, Chris, next time you want me to pick you up?
Not now.
Okay. I'll pick us all up and we'll go somewhere. It's like a long time.
Yeah, I'll stick to giving Chris the tours of the city. So yeah.
The windshield tour goes really slowly. It's like being on it's a small world at Disney. It's very enjoyable.
Yes. So, but no, do definitely appreciate both of you taking time today to have a chat, not only about big games in the chamber, but just about small business in general and how you guys are adapting, pivoting, innovating, and you know, just keeping things going, because it's a crucial time, and you know, we need more of the success stories right now, just to share with other people, to encourage them to keep going, to keep building. And you know, if, like you said, Chris, you know, if you want to start a business, there's always an opportunity. You just got to look for it and capture it. So, you know, appreciate all that y'all are doing, but do just want to say thanks for watching Mornings with the Mayor. Again, I'm your host, Robert Guy. We'll be doing our best to keep you updated, informed, and just kind of thinking about the different things that are going on in the city of Farmers Branch. But we'll be back in a few weeks with another show. But until then, stay safe, and we'll talk to y'all soon. See ya.